All right, gang, we got a little light trickling through the end of the tunnel here. We're getting closer and closer to that ultimate goal of closing day happening as smoothly as possible. So today we're going to go through episode 3 of Closing Without No Stinkin' Realtor. And we are talking about the prep for closing. So we've passed through now mortgage commitment, contingency satisfaction, closing disclosures being signed, clear to close. And now we're looking to schedule that final walkthrough and actually conduct your seller side closing potentially if we're not actually meeting with the buyers, which is seldomly the case these days everywhere in the country post-COVID. So what do you need to prep? Your attorney is going to, because you've got one already on retainer and you've done your due diligence to make sure they're the greatest attorney in the world and they are accountable and available to you when you need them, they're going to tell you what you need to bring, which is, generally speaking, just your ID, whatever documents you're responsible for producing to actually satisfy local and municipal law regarding conveyance of title. Sometimes the smoke certificates that we've talked about. Sometimes there are other things. Your attorney will guide you through that. Government-issued identification that is not expired. And yourselves. Now, what would you want to bring along with you? That's up to you in terms of things you want to convey to the buyer. Keys, garage door openers, these sorts of things you're going to want to bring to your attorney so that they can be couriered over to your buyer's attorney and handed over to your buyer at their closing sometime in the future. Other things that you may have agreed to leave behind for the buyer, such as manuals for appliances or any such paperwork that your buyers may want access to, you can leave in the home. There's no reason to bring it to your buyer's closing because they're going to be obviously accessing the home sometime in the near future and can get it out of the kitchen drawer at that point. However, and guys, I can't tell you how much I need to stress this. It's almost one of the most important things that I have to tell my sellers when conducting a real estate transaction for them. You need to move. It's funny, it is. It's funny that we have to say this, but many folks don't even understand that by the time you're conducting the final walkthrough, unless other arrangements have been made with your buyer for some reason that you're going to be occupying this property post-closing, you've got to be the hell out of there, and so do all your belongings. Again, unless there was written agreement made between you, your buyer, and all their representatives that XYZ pieces of your personal belongings are supposed to be remaining with or without any consideration paid for them, you got to get it out. Beyond just telling my sellers they've got to move, yes, I will admit it's fewer and further between those sellers that actually need that education, but I would say probably upwards of 85-90% of the sellers I work for do not understand that everything you own needs to get the hell out of that house unless you've had a discussion with your buyers about it previously, up to and including paint to match all the bedroom walls. Yes, it makes sense. Why wouldn't they want some touch-up paint? They probably don't. Why? Because it's a cost to remove if they don't want your extra paint. If they want to make the room a different color, that just becomes a hazard. It's not something they can just throw in the trash. Most municipalities around the country are going to force you to do something special with that paint to get rid of it. You can't leave it behind. Also would make sense, well, I know my buyers are renters right now, and they probably haven't got any lawnmowers or yard care tools or whatever the case may be. Why don't I just leave it for them? They're going to really enjoy having to not spend extra money buying this stuff. Makes sense. Telling you get it out of there. If you fail to, your buyers are going to show up for your final walkthrough, whether it's the day before or the morning of closing, right before they go to their attorney's office, and they're going to say, hey, I didn't agree to deal with this stuff. It's not my stuff. I can't just throw an entire lawnmower in the trash. I'm not going to pay to take it to the dump. This is a cost. I didn't agree to have these costs. Get rid of your things. Typically speaking, in most municipalities around the country, broom-swept condition is the way in which a seller conveys their property to the buyer. That is the way the property should look. You're not responsible for professional cleaning services or things like this unless previously negotiated. But nobody wants to clean up your dust bunnies either. Make sure you are working with your attorney to follow the letter of the purchase and sales contract so that you are making good on your side of the deal when we actually approach closing. You've got to do what you said you would do in that contract, and in most cases it's going to include removing all of your personal belongings and broom sweeping this home. Now, other items that often get glossed over, window treatments. They are not supposed to convey with the home. Could they? Sure, but you need to get this negotiation out of the way. Do you expect compensation for them? Maybe somebody would pay for, custom window treatments. Otherwise, your average window shade or, an old dirty curtain, nobody wants these things. And yes, it would make sense. And most sellers think this way, that why would they want somebody looking in their windows until they get different window treatments? Why wouldn't I just leave this here? Because it's a cost to get rid of. Well, even if it's stuff that you can throw in the regular trash, it's still work. It's man hours to take down your window treatments and to get them into a receptacle, what would be appropriate for the local trash authority to actually take. So don't do that. Get rid of your things. As long as you've done these things, you've moved, or at least you've gotten all your things in a moving truck, you've removed all your personal belongings, you've gotten the place broom swept condition, is a much lower incidence of issues that can transpire on your final walkthrough, but they are still many. Not all properties are occupied up until the day of the final walkthrough. Some people have moved weeks earlier. Some people didn't occupy the property for the last year and it's been sitting vacant. Squatters are a thing. Have you read about it in the headlines? Something that you want to get ahead of before the final walkthrough. Maybe go visit that property a few times approaching the closing day and the final walkthrough day. Make sure you're staying on top of things like, the weather, freezing pipes, water intrusion, pests. It is perfectly possible for you to wake up in the spring with a termite infection that you didn't have, last fall and over the winter, but the weather warmed up and here go those termites. You don't know. You need to stay on top of it the way your real estate professional would if you had hired a stinking realtor, but you did not. So make sure you're keying in on the stuff. You need to convey the property in the same condition that the buyer expects it to be in the same condition that they last inspected it in, which was those property inspections. That was the last time the buyer was in the home. As long as you are complying with all of this prescription, you will sail through final walkthrough and on to your closing period. Stay tuned for the next episode. We're going to go through a couple of last items to consider for your closing day, and we'll see you there, episode number 4. Peace.